Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel, and welcome to yet another episode of the Weekend Drawing Session podcast. Next episode coming next week is actually an episode that I'm going to skip. I'm going to take a vacation because I actually will not be in town for the next weekend. I will be in Alberta. I just need to travel to Alberta from time to time because it's just so beautiful and I just need to be in nature, in absolute silence and just chill. And this is something that I'm going to be doing for the next weekend. So I will not be drawing. I will be leaving my computer at home and there's no way I can be drawing while I'm at Alberta. So that's why there will be no episode coming next Monday. So just letting you guys know, I'm really sorry, but I will be back at it and I will be continuing drawing when I return. But for this episode, we're working on the last page of chapter 8. And I know I throw the word last pages a lot for the last episode, but it's actually because I've been working on the last pages for a long period of time at this point. It takes time to finish pages and it takes time to finish last pages. And as you guys know, I'm drawing several pages at once, but this page is last in the sense that this is page 52 out of 52 pages of chapter 8. So it really is the last page. So I wanted just to talk a little bit about what is happening on this page, why this page is important, and kind of just overall how I like to draw my last pages, because I do have my certain kind of not like set of rules, but I have certain idea of how I like my last pages look like. And overall, I made a video recently, I recorded it, but I'm not sure that this video is out yet. But overall, I was talking about just certain things that I like to do for my comic, and one of them is that I like to create certain set of rules and certain rules of like consistency. So I like to draw my cover certain way. I like my covers to have certain logic at the same time. So if you see a cover, you kind of know the logic for the cover. So you know how to read the information that's on the cover because you're going to know what they meant to represent. And I kind of have the same logic for the last pages of chapters. Usually, like I literally have almost the list of the rules that I like to have for the last pages. First of all, I always like my last pages to be huge wide panels. I basically like to be a one panel page type of thing. So I don't like to have any division lines on this panel. Sometimes I might have like a very, very small second panel somewhere in the top. But overall, I like the last page to be just full on drawing on its own. And there is several reasons for that, because first of all, when the chapter is ending, I want to have this slowing of the action. And I had a video that I made about pacing, like a drawing pacing type of thing, just how to control the speed of your story and of your comic. In my experience, the wider the panel is and like the bigger the drawing is, the slower it feels. It almost feels like frozen time and slow. And to me, it only makes sense to finish the chapter on a slowed down note. It's almost like I want my readers to pause and think about what just happened in this chapter, how this chapter wrapped up, just give it some thought, and overall just slow down the action a little bit. Even though I know you can do like cliffhangers and whatnot, to me, the slowness and the fastness, like the speed of the story and cliffhangers and stuff like this are not they're two different things, whereas the speed of the story is really, it's all about how fast the story unravels, and it helps your reader to have experience with the story. It's either they are in the state of tension or they are in the state of a little bit of relaxation and retrospection. Or when there is a cliffhanger, when you're leaving reader, like giving them new information, leaving them there, it's different. It's more not emotional and feeling wise. It's really more about information, and you're gonna trigger this intellectual hunger. So you give information, not finishing it, and then make your reader get a little angsty in their thoughts. So to me, those are not contradictory. So when I do my last page, I like to have a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I like to have this slowness. And what I mean by the cliffhanger for my particular pages is not that I want to introduce new action necessarily. It's not like, oh my goodness, I really need to read another page, I really need to read another chapter, or I just can't live without it. I just have to read it right away because it's, I don't know what's going to happen next, and it's very intense what's happening in the last page. It's not exactly how I like to do it. I like to unravel a little bit more of the mystery, or just give like things to ponder a little bit. Like, hey, by the way, how guys did you think about that? Or how about this information? And just don't want it to be too stressful. I want still it to be a little bit more relaxed. So for this page, this last page is actually pretty important. And not typically last pages are important. They are just important as any other page of my story. Even though they're more relaxed, they usually give a lot of information, and I'm usually like to utilizing the scope and the space of the page, the fact that I'm using one panel to its most capacity. So what's happening on this page? So throughout the chapters leading up to this page, we were slowly discovering a little bit of the past of Kuroi. He is one of my protagonists. You guys probably know, like whoever watches this podcast, they know for my stand-up videos, I'm aware that a lot of the people maybe don't know the characters of my story, but if you're actually following the drawing podcast, I'm sure you guys already know characters by name. But basically throughout the story leading up to this page, we get to see a little bit of Kuroi's memories, and we learn a lot about Kuroi and about something that might have happened to him, his potential motivation throughout those memories. Information get revealed to us pretty slowly, and his whole character is pretty mysterious, and I'm slowly feeding to my readers some bits and pieces of information and some information about him. So by this moment in time, we already learned that he had something happened in his past that was very traumatic for him, and for some reason he feels himself responsible in this situation, and he feels guilty. And this event involved, like, it happened in winter during the night, and it involved at this point we see mostly dead children, but it involves people dying, people being murdered, and he is tormented basically by this event. So this is something that we are slowly learning about him. And for people who are also, like, it's not a mandatory for my reader to understand this right away, but for people who actually pay attention and have extra intuitive abilities and who are piecing some pieces together, they might start connecting this to the village of Afolia. So the village of Afolia by this point in time is mentioned in my story several times. It is a sister village to the village called Florent, the village that Sakai, my main character, arrived at when she just came to Silana. And small bits and pieces are mentioned about Afolia. Like, first of all, Afolia is not there anymore. This village is mentioned as this village was, and this village is mentioned that it was near Florent, but at the same time, we are well aware that there is no other village next to Florent, as well, that we now, like, this location is now addressed as Afolia Valley, so there is no technical village, and so there are a lot of mysteries surrounding this village. So my readers may pick up on this information and connect it to the whatever memories Kuroi is experiencing, but this is absolutely not mandatory. It's a stretch. So this is for someone who is trying to figure it out already, because Kuroi also have like reaction to the words of Afolia being mentioned, as well as I'm talking about the concept of shadows, and shadows is basically the soul of people that have been harvested after people are dead. And it's mentioned that Sakai had around 300 shadows surrounding the key to this world, to Silana. So basically we get this numbers and this random information thrown around that can be combined to this conclusion that there was a village called Afolia that was originally next to Florent, and something happened to this village that made this village no longer exist and left behind a lot of dead people. And some of my readers might start connecting the dots that this might be something that Kuroi is remembering, because he seemed to have knowledge about the Folian Valley, he seems to have knowledge about the area. Anywho, it seems suspicious, but this is absolutely non-mandatory for my readers to understand at this point. It was someone who is really paying attention and, savvy in all of those things. This page, however, is serving either as confirmation for those people who kind of start figuring it out, or a reveal for people who didn't pick it up on this information yet. So in this page, it's one of the Kuroi's flashbacks that he's seen, and the flashbacks that he's having are sporadic, unpredictable. They're basically happening when he's getting triggered somewhat. Like something reminds him of this event. In this particular situation, he is with a group of Selenians who hunted firstborns, the monsters, and those monsters were present during this night where this event happened. So just seeing them and just realizing that they're around triggers Kuroi to have more and more memories about this event. So what we're seeing is his flashback. So we see in this image, Kuroi himself is standing there in the snow, but it's mostly metaphorical. He's there looking at the memory. So this is kind of how this image is presented. So this flashback page is telling us a lot of more information about his flashbacks. We get to learn not only that it happened in night in winter, we get to see the location where it happened. And the way I'm trying to establish that this location that he's seeing is indeed the Foli is by several things. So basically, I already drawn this location before in chapter 3 when Sakai arrives to the village of Florent. Her and Kuroi travel quite a while, not quite a while, they kind of traveled through hills through Avolian Valley, and they come up to this edge of the hill that is outlooking to the Florentorn, and Florentorn is the farthest village in this image. So this visual was set up in chapter 3. And then earlier in chapter 8, Sakai is remembering her arrival to Silana just because she's traveling with the older lady that is mentioning some events that might have happened in the Folian Valley. She's implying that something happened with the village of Folia. She's talking a little bit of the village of Florentorn, and basically that makes Sakai think back of her arrival to Silana and why the villagers of Florentorn were so hostile to her, and were kind of implying that the fact that she came from Folian Valley, appeared from nowhere, it's kind of scary for them. They don't like that. And now Sakai is rethinking and thinking maybe they've been hostile because something has happened in the valley before. Maybe like this village of Folia that the older lady is mentioning has something to do with it. So, and as Sakai thinks about it, I put the visual. So basically I reuse the same panel from chapter 3 in chapter 8 as Sakai thinking about it. And in the beginning of the footage, you saw me actually grabbing and copying one of the panels and putting it in this page and using it as a base to draw. And the reason is because I'm using this angle again, but in a different look. So I'm using the very same angle, kind of like the standing on this hill overviewing the village, but this time I'm changing the time not to evening to the night and summer to winter because it's different time. And also I'm drawing an extra village in this location. So what I'm trying to establish is that the location that we've seen before, I'm basically now connecting this location to the flashbacks that Kuroi have seen to connect the two and basically imply that flashbacks that Kuroi is having, they're from the same location that we've seen in chapter 3, but in another kind of time. And it's vague at this point. I'm not specifying how far in the past the situation happened. I'm just basically saying that there was extra village and this flashback that Kuroi having about this village that is no more. So this is kind of what I'm trying to achieve with this page, and this is something that I'm trying to show. And you will be seeing in the next episode. So basically in this episode, I'm drawing this village, I'm drawing the background, the snow, the buildings, but I'm not specifically drawing everything in this page yet. So whatever you see here, it's not the final look of the page. There will be characters. So as you guys know, I draw my background separately and then drawing prior to drawing the page. So what's happening in this case is that because it's kind of standalone image, like I'm not having the whole scene happening with this look, so the background kind of that I'm drawing is one off. So how I'm approaching drawing this page is that I'm gonna draw the village, the hills, the snow, the everything, and I already decided to draw Kuroi and this boy already because those ones they were kind of easy to draw because I've drawn several pages before. So but basically whatever I'm drawing right now, I'm considering a background, and then I will be adding characters. So I will be adding a lot of people actually here, and you're gonna guys see it in the next episode, not next week, in 2 weeks, remember, because I have vacation. But yeah, this is kind of half of the information of what is happening in this page. I don't want to talk a little bit more about, first of all, I don't have characters that will be appear in this page, so it will be more like a hypothetical thinking, like talking about something that you guys can see. So I'm gonna save it for another episode where I can actually show in these characters. At this point, I want to talk about kind of reminding your readers about important things before important reveals, because I mentioned it before, actually. Like I mentioned in the previous episode where I was redrawing, like adding extra page to just remind readers that my character is tired. So when the tiredness come into play, it doesn't seem like it came out of nowhere. And for this particular page, it's something that I really wanted to talk about. Like here, I did, I think, the right thing, but I did it actually by accident. And I talk on this channel how I've embraced the fact that I'm actually a pantser and I have to listen to my intuition when I'm creating my comic pages. And it always pays off. And this time I listened to my intuition and it led me to a good space. So I decided to talk to you guys a little bit about it. So this page, as you probably figured out, is an important plot point reveal. So I'm connecting some dots and letting know important piece of information. So, but you only will be able to understand this piece of information if you remember that this view is like that we're seeing a Foli Valley and Florent. So when we see two villages instead of one that we know it's there, we realize, oh damn, this might be the village that was there and there's not there anymore, and there's the people, this village was destroyed, oh my god, what happened, everybody died in this village. So to make this connection, I need people to concretely remember that this view means Florent, to know that this angle means Florent. And I had this exact view, as I mentioned, in chapter 3, and usually if you would be binge watching my comic, it's chances are that you might remember the view and you might realize the connection. However, first of all, it's not guaranteed, and second of all, I'm releasing my comic a page per week, so pretty slow. So if you, for example, it could take you like an hour between chapter 3 to read chapter 8. For my readers who experience the story as it comes out, it takes a couple years, and people probably will not remember. And I mentioned before that my priority is to create my story for binge reading or for just reading the whole thing, because this is how the story will stay, quote unquote, in history. But overall, I'm thinking that it's still not good enough. I still need to remind people of this visual before revealing it. I need to remind pretty soon. And this is something that I did more following my intuition rather than logic, but I'm glad I followed my intuition. So as I mentioned, as Sakai is traveling with the older lady, she is reminded, like she starts to think about how she arrived to Silana, and she starts thinking about this moment when she arrives and was, arrived to Florent, and as she's thinking that, I'm reusing the same panel. So I'm grabbing the panel from chapter 3 and I'm reusing this earlier in chapter 8, basically reminding my reader about the same visual, about the same hill and about the village in the distance. So I'm reusing this visual again, and I think it's a good idea. So when you want to do some reveal for your readers, you want to, first of all, you had it shown before, and then you want to show it again, and you want to show it in a way that you are making sure you read a notice. So it's not like mentioned in passing or something like this. It's still, there is still focus on it, but it's not focus in a way, dun dun dun, remember this. The focus should be because the character thinking about this element, or this element brought up into focus because of some other reason. So it doesn't feel like it's a plot reminding you about something because something is about to happen. You need to kind of be careful about this. And I didn't plan to make her think about it. It just happened as I was kind of outlining, outlining the page and kind of penciling the outline of the page. This is where I realized, actually just beats wise and I don't know, just pacing wise, it feels like it would be a good moment for Sakai to actually reflect and think back, because I also realized that it's important for Sakai to start thinking about everything that's been happening, because for now she's just arrives in the world, something happens, she reacts to that, something happens, she starts to doing something to survive, and this she has a pause and she actually has to think about what was happening, what does it mean. So I included this episode, and by that time I actually didn't know how the last page of chapter 8 would look like exactly. I was thinking to do it differently. I was thinking to have Croy, the reveal of this page that I wanted to do is that Croy is still in his memories, but instead of focus of the scenery itself, the focus is about who else was present there. So already saw dead like children and dead people, but then it will be revealed that we see other people who are potentially aggressors in the situation, and we're gonna see firstborns. And this was just the plan, and I wanted to throw some snowy mist around so we don't see location yet, so everything is still mysterious. But I actually changed my mind, and I decided to tell to the reader now that it's actually happening in the village of Foli, and it happens next to Florent. So to me, it really worked out that I reminded about this location and I reminded about this visual right in the same chapter. And, you know, probably it will be still a struggle for people who are reading a page per week to remember, but I did my job, I think, here as a comic creator. So I think this is something really important, to keep the visual that is recognizable, and especially if you get in the same location in different, you know, lighting condition or season, I think it's good to keep the same angle of reveal of this location. If this location doesn't have a very specific landmark, like very specific mountain, very specific, I don't know, tall building or something like this, I think it's very important to keep the angle at least the same, just so that your reader can recognize certain things right away. And also I think it's very important to make sure you remind your reader things right before, because to me, this is something like I'm letting you know all of this, guys, as I'm discovering myself, because I find that the hardest part about storytelling is not necessarily like dialogue, characters, I don't know, world building, magic systems, geography, politics. None of this is difficult for me. For me, what's difficult and what seems to be challenging is the order in which you decide to reveal information, and order in which you, like, kind of the journey that you let your reader go through as they discovering the world. And this is very much about the first read of the story. I always like thinking about my story as something that can be read twice or several times. Overall, see more value in the stories that can be read several times, and you want to add a lot of details and layers that it is interesting for people to do so. However, the first reading is still very important, you know, and some writers would assume that this is the most important one. So basically, this is the journey of revelation that your character has to go through, and not the character, like a reader has to go through and realize, oh, this is about the world, and also this, and oh my god, this adds up. It's like kind of like the journey of emotion that you lead your reader through. To me, this is the most challenging part, and this is something that is like a balance of revealing information, but revealing information kind of when the people want this information to be revealed, or when the reader is actually actively wondering about this aspect. So it's gonna be no good if you reveal information just, you know, randomly. Oh, by the way, this, you want to make sure first that A, your reader really wants to know that, B, that your reader was already potentially thinking about this and try to figure it out themselves, and C, that your reader is actively remembering of these points. I think both three are extremely important, and I find it challenging to, you know, synthesize the three. And also it's very tricky about like reminding something to your reader. And, you know, this is something where, for example, in writing, beta readers or alpha readers really come along, where you get to give like a test drive of your story to other readers and see what they understood, what they didn't understand, what they got, what they didn't get. But when you're creating a webcomic, something, you know, like mine, I don't really have an opportunity to do so, because in order for people to consume the whole story, I have to give them the whole chapter, a whole story plot, and it takes time to produce every page. So I should be drawing extremely many chapters ahead to get kind of the result that I can. And now I'm drawing maybe 80 pages ahead of my release time, but I still feel it's not ahead enough to be able to implement beta readers, alpha readers, or like just, you know, test readers. So for me, it's tricky because I only understand that people didn't get something when they already didn't get something. So I want to understand it when the page is already released and people already get to look at it, and, you know, this is how I know that something didn't work out. And to me, the only solution is learn it and /maybe take a little bit of time later to clarify something in the best writing possibly can, or/and learn why it didn't work well, and make sure I'm revealing information to the readers better next time so they get it. And I definitely did not a mistake. I definitely didn't do a good job with some other aspect of the story, some element. It's not really critical, honestly, but maybe I'll do another video where I'll be talking about the information reveal and I will mention that. But I think in this chapter I did do it successfully. I still understand that some people might not recognize the location just because it is in the, you know, snowy and looks a little bit different, but I feel like I, from my understanding, did the best thing that I can. I will just have to be able to reinforce the information with the next pages and just kind of tell it from different sources. So yeah, that's it for this video, and this is kind of like a part one of me finishing this page, and I'm gonna show you how I finish this page in the next episode. That will be in 2 weeks. I hope, guys, you're gonna take a break from me a little bit, and then you will be more excited to see another video when it's out. So yeah, and what's for me, I am excited to go to Alberta. Alberta is the most beautiful place, and when you know travel is open and you can travel internationally, I highly recommend you guys go to Banff, Alberta, Canada. So yeah, and that's it for this video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.